My dear friend, within you lives a silent, luminous presence that is forever seeking to guide you, heal you, and lift you to a higher plane of life. This presence is not far away, not hidden in some distant realm, nor reserved only for saints and sages. It is speaking to you now in the quiet corridors of your own mind. Every noble impulse, every intuitive nudge, every sudden clarity that flashes upon your consciousness is the whisper of the infinite attempting to lead you toward your greater good. Most people pass through life unaware that the divine is constantly broadcasting ideas of harmony, abundance, peace, and protection into their mental atmosphere. They mistake these holy impressions for random thoughts or mere imagination, but imagination, when illuminated by Spirit, becomes the language of God. When a gentle thought urges you to forgive, to create, to rise above fear, that is not just the mind wandering. This is the infinite urging you to unlock your own spiritual magnificence. Once you realize that God speaks in ideas, in intuitions, in inspirations clothed as thought, you awaken to a tremendous truth. Your mind is not an isolated chamber. It is a receiving station for divine, and when you learn to quiet your fears, calm your emotions, and listen with expectancy, you will discover that the inner voice of truth has been guiding you all along. Your mind is far more than a collection of thoughts, memories, and passing impressions. It is a sacred instrument designed to receive the guidance of the infinite intelligence that governs all creation. When you begin to understand that the divine communicates not through thunderous voices from the sky, but through the subtle movements of your own consciousness, you awaken to a relationship with God that is deeply personal, powerful, and transformative. Throughout history, mystics, prophets, poets, and thinkers have testified to an inner guidance, a spiritual prompting that nudged them toward truth, creativity, compassion, and purpose. What they experienced was not extraordinary. It was the natural operation of a universal principle available to every human being, the mind as a divine channel. Every thought that carries wisdom, clarity, hope, or reassurance has its origin in the deeper part of your being. God does not limit his communication to scriptures, rituals, or sacred places. He also speaks through the medium you use every moment of your life, your mind. When a brilliant idea flashes upon you seemingly out of nowhere, when a sudden inner knowing tells you what to do, when peace settles on you in the middle of confusion, these are not coincidences. These are signals from the infinite mind, revealing itself through your own. But the trouble is that most people attribute these inspirations to luck, impulse, or imagination, never realizing they are standing at the threshold of divine conversation. The mind works like a radio. It receives what it is tuned to. When you constantly dwell on fear, worry, resentment, and doubt, your mental frequency becomes cluttered with static, making it difficult for the higher messages of spirit to reach your awareness. But when you cultivate calmness, gratitude, and openness, you create the perfect atmosphere for divine ideas to flow freely. God's guidance is not loud or forceful. It comes gently, like a soft breeze blowing through an open window. You must create the inner stillness that allows you to feel its movement. Even in the busiest moments of life, this guidance is present, ready to inspire your next step, your next solution, your next breakthrough. It is often said that God writes his messages upon the pages of your mind. When you suddenly feel compelled to make a certain decision, when your inner sense urges you to leave a harmful situation, when you feel drawn toward a new opportunity you never considered before, You are encountering divine communication. The subconscious mind in particular is profoundly receptive to these spiritual impressions. It takes the ideas of the infinite and works them into your experience, guiding you toward the people, circumstances, and events that align with your highest good. Many people pray for answers, not realizing that the answers are already being whispered within. They wait for miracles outside, but the true miracle is the transformation of thought that takes place inside. Your mental environment determines how clearly you can receive divine guidance. Faith opens the channel, fear closes it. Gratitude widens the channel, negativity restricts it, expectancy activates it, indifference dulls it. When you begin to approach your inner life with reverence, understanding that God is continually speaking through your mind, you take on a new responsibility. You must guard your thoughts, purify your intentions, and align your actions with truth. You begin to see your mind not as a battlefield, but as a sanctuary where divine ideas are planted, nurtured, and brought into life. Recognize, too, that the divine never speaks confusion or fear. Any thought that diminishes you, condemns you, or causes anxiety does not come from God. The divine voice always uplifts, reassures, strengthens, and guides toward harmony. When a thought enters your mind that inspires peace, wisdom, or courage, it is the infinite flowing through you. When you feel a sudden sense of direction amid uncertainty, that is God's intelligence providing insight. When you have a strong desire to pursue something noble, creative, or beneficial, that is Spirit nudging you toward your purpose. The more you listen, the louder this inner guidance becomes, not in volume, but in clarity. Begin to trust these impressions. Begin to honor them. Begin to recognize them as the divine language of your own consciousness. You do not need to strain, force, or beg for guidance. It is already present, already active, already eager to express itself through you. All you must do is quiet the noise of the outer world long enough to hear the whisper of the inner world. And once you acknowledge your mind as a divine channel, you will find that every day brings new insights, new inspirations, and new manifestations of God's presence, gently leading you toward your highest destiny. Intuition is one of the most profound gifts given to you by the infinite, yet it is also one of the most ignored. Many people move through life relying only on logic, reasoning, and the 5 physical senses, forgetting that there is a deeper intelligence quietly guiding them beneath the surface. This intelligence speaks not with audible words but through gentle impressions, sudden realizations, subtle warnings, and inspired impulses that rise from the subconscious like a soft echo from the divine. When you understand that intuition is not guesswork or coincidence, but the inner voice of God communicating through your deeper mind, you begin to walk through life with a new awareness, confidence, and spiritual certainty. Intuition often appears as a feeling, an inner knowing that does not require explanation. You might meet someone for the first time and feel an inexplicable sense of trust or discomfort. You may consider a path or opportunity and feel a quiet conviction that it is either right or wrong. These feelings are not random. They are signals from the divine center of your being, guiding you toward harmony and away from discord. The subconscious mind has access to infinite intelligence, and intuition is its way of revealing truth before your reasoning mind has gathered all the facts. Where your physical senses stop, your intuitive senses begin. Think of intuition as the divine telephone line. When you calm your mind, lift your thoughts, and open your heart, you are able to hear this spiritual communication with remarkable clarity. God does not force His guidance upon you. He whispers it gently into the stillness of your inner world. The noise of fear, doubt, stress, and overthinking blocks this inner voice, while peace, faith, and receptivity amplify it. This is why so many intuitive insights come during moments of relaxation, during prayer, meditation, a quiet walk, or even while drifting to sleep. When the conscious mind softens its grip, the subconscious opens like a flower, allowing divine ideas to rise into awareness. There are moments in your life when intuition has tried to warn you or lead you, even if you did not recognize it. Perhaps you felt uneasy about someone's intentions, hesitated before making a risky choice, or sensed that something wasn't quite right. If you look back, you'll realize those impressions were accurate. Intuition does not deal in confusion, it deals in clarity. It does not create anxiety, it creates awareness. Its purpose is to protect, guide, and uplift you. Many people later regret ignoring their intuition, saying, "I knew I shouldn't have done that," or "I had a feeling something was wrong." Those statements are testimonies to the divine voice they failed to honor. Intuition can also guide you toward opportunities, creativity, and inspiration. Sometimes a powerful idea flashes into your mind, a solution to a problem, a new path to pursue, a creative direction you never considered. This is the infinite expressing itself through the channel of your imagination. The greatest inventions, masterpieces, and breakthroughs in history have all been born from intuitive insight. Logic may refine an idea, but intuition reveals it. Logic sees what is, intuition sees what can be. When you learn to listen, you tap into a wellspring of wisdom that exceeds human understanding. To strengthen intuition, you must cultivate inner stillness. The divine voice cannot be heard in the chaos of constant noise, mental chatter, and emotional turmoil. Take time each day to quiet your mind, breathe deeply, and surrender your concerns. Ask for guidance sincerely, then release the question into your subconscious. The answer will come not always immediately, but at the right moment, in the right form, with the right clarity. Sometimes it appears as a persistent nudge, other times as a sudden breakthrough, and often as a peaceful certainty that settles into your heart. Trust the timing, for intuition is never late. It arrives precisely when you are ready to receive it. You must also learn to trust your intuitive impressions even before you can logically justify them. The conscious mind often demands explanations, but intuition requires faith. When a thought brings peace, expansion, and alignment, it is divine. When a thought brings confusion, contraction, or fear, it is not. Over time, with practice, you will recognize the difference effortlessly. Intuition has a quality of truth to it, a quiet authority that resonates through your being. When God speaks within you, the message carries a calm power that needs no external validation. As you begin to honor your intuition, your life becomes guided rather than guessed, aligned rather than forced. You walk through each day with the awareness that you are never alone, never without direction, never without insight. The infinite is always communicating with you, not through dramatic miracles, but through the subtle impressions in your heart and mind. When you trust this inner voice, you align yourself with divine wisdom that leads you toward your highest good. Intuition is the language of God written on your soul, waiting for you to listen. Silencing fear and doubt is one of the most essential steps in opening yourself to divine inspiration, because fear creates noise in the mind and doubt creates confusion in the heart. When these two forces take hold of you, they cloud your inner perception and prevent you from recognizing the guidance that is already flowing from the infinite. God does not shout over the noise of your anxieties. He whispers in the stillness of your soul. When your mind is crowded with worry, the divine messages that could lead you to solutions, opportunities, and peace are drowned out. But the moment you quiet your mental storms even slightly, you create the space through which heavenly impressions can enter. It is in this calmness that the divine begins to speak with clarity, subtlety, and power. Fear is an emotional energy that contracts your mind. It narrows your awareness, pulling your attention toward worst-case scenarios, imagined threats, and negative outcomes. In this contracted state, you are unable to perceive the broader vision that God is trying to show you. You focus on what might go wrong rather than what could go right. You cling to the familiar even when the familiar is harmful, because fear convinces you that change is dangerous. Yet fear is not truth. It is a misinterpretation of truth. It is the shadow that appears only when you turn your back to the light. When you turn toward the light of divine wisdom, fear loses its power because you realize that you are guided, protected, and accompanied by a presence that is infinite in intelligence and perfect. In love, doubt operates differently but is equally limiting. Doubt questions your worthiness to receive guidance, your ability to understand it, and the reliability of your inner impressions. It tells you that your intuition is just imagination, that your inspirations are unrealistic, and that your inner calm is temporary. Doubt makes you second, guess the very signs and nudges that God sends for your benefit. Many blessings have been delayed in people's lives simply because they doubted the guidance they received. They heard the whisper of the divine but hesitated, overanalyzed, or dismissed it completely. Doubt is not humility. It is the mind resisting the higher wisdom of the soul. To silence fear and doubt, you must recognize that they have no real authority. They arise from past conditioning, limiting beliefs, and the opinions of others, not from divine truth. God never plants fear in your mind. He never gives you a thought that causes anxiety, dread, or panic. These are the echoes of human experience, not the voice of the infinite. When you understand this distinction, you begin to reclaim the sovereignty of your inner world. You begin to gently tell fear, "You are not my guide," and tell doubt, "You are not my truth." With every moment of inner awareness, their influence weakens. Stillness is the antidote. Quieting the mind is not about forcing thoughts away. It is about refusing to feed the fearful ones and allowing the divine ones to rise naturally. When you take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and soften your inner resistance, your subconscious mind becomes receptive. This relaxed state is where divine guidance flows most easily. Negative thoughts lose their grip, and a quiet knowing emerges from within. You begin to sense that something greater is supporting you, directing you, and empowering you. You may not hear words, but you feel guidance. You feel clarity rising. You feel peace unfolding. As you sustain this inner peace, even for a few moments a day, your mind becomes like a clear lake instead of a stormy sea. In this clarity, ideas from the divine reflect themselves effortlessly. You begin to receive intuitive insights, creative solutions, and spiritual nudges with greater frequency. You sense when to move forward and when to wait. You sense which choices align with your soul and which do not. This is how divine inspiration becomes your compass, not through force, but through calm receptivity. Silencing fear and doubt also requires trust. You must trust that God is always communicating, always guiding, and always leading you toward your highest good. You must trust the process, even when you cannot see the full path yet. You must trust your inner impressions, especially when they bring peace. Peace is the signature of the divine. Any thought wrapped in calmness, hope, wisdom, or assurance is a message from God. When you learn to recognize this signature, you no longer let fear dictate your decisions or doubt block your blessings. In the end, the divine does not ask you to be fearless. He asks you to be willing to slow down, willing to listen, willing to trust. When you silence fear and doubt, even for a moment, you open the door for divine inspiration to enter your life and lead you step by step into the unfolding of your highest destiny. Your thoughts become powerful when they align with God's ideas because the human mind, by its very nature, is designed to cooperate with the infinite. Every thought you hold carries a frequency, an energy vibration that influences your emotions, actions, and circumstances. But when your thoughts rise from fear, negativity, or limitation, their power is fragmented and weak. They lack the creative potency that shapes destiny. Divine ideas, on the other hand, are thoughts rooted in truth, thoughts that reflect harmony, abundance, love, peace, wisdom, and purpose. When your mind aligns with these higher patterns, it becomes a channel for spiritual power, and your life begins to rearrange itself according to these elevated vibrations. There is no force stronger than the mind united with the divine intention behind creation. Every idea that comes from God carries with it the blueprint for its own fulfillment. When a divine idea enters your mind, whether it appears as inspiration, intuition, or a quiet inner knowing, it brings with it guidance, energy, and direction. It is not just a thought, it is a spiritual seed that contains the potential for growth. The moment you accept such an idea, dwell upon it, and feel its truth, you activate a universal law. The subconscious mind responds to what you emotionally and mentally accept as true. When what you accept aligns with God's truth, your subconscious becomes a creative instrument of the divine. It begins to attract, arrange, and organize circumstances that support that idea's expression in your life. Human beings often underestimate the power of thought because they judge thoughts by their appearance. They forget that a simple thought can alter the course of their entire destiny. The greatest transformations in history, personal, scientific, spiritual, began with a single inspired idea. When your consciousness lifts itself above fear and embraces the ideas of the infinite, you are tapping into the same creative power that moves galaxies, regenerates nature, and orchestrates the harmony of life itself. God's ideas are not small, they are expansive, liberating, and life-giving. When you align with them, your thoughts cease to be ordinary. They become charged with spiritual vitality. This alignment does not require complicated rituals or extraordinary effort. It begins with simple awareness. When a thought of peace comes to you, hold it. When a thought of forgiveness rises, honor it. When a thought of compassion, creativity, or possibility appears, embrace it. These are not your thoughts alone. They are divine impressions moving through you. The more you give attention to such thoughts, the more you attune yourself to the frequency of divine wisdom. You begin to think from the level of your soul rather than the limitations of your past. Your mind becomes illuminated from within, revealing paths and solutions that your old patterns could not comprehend. Aligning with God's ideas also means releasing thoughts that contradict divine truth. Thoughts of unworthiness, fear of lack, resentment, and self-doubt cannot coexist with the divine pattern within you. These thoughts drain your energy and weaken your spiritual perception. When you entertain them, you block the flow of higher guidance. But the moment you shift your attention to thoughts that reflect divine principles, your inner atmosphere changes. Peace replaces anxiety, confidence replaces doubt, clarity replaces confusion. This shift is not imaginary. It is a real reorientation of consciousness. It alters the way you think, feel, act, and eventually live. The subconscious mind is incredibly responsive to whatever is impressed upon it repeatedly. When you feed it thoughts of God's abundance, you begin to experience abundance. When you feed it thoughts of divine protection, you experience safety. When you feed it thoughts of healing, you recover more quickly, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. This is not magic, it is a spiritual law. Asterisk asterisk, where your thoughts go, your life follows. Asterisk asterisk, and when those thoughts align with the divine, your life aligns with blessings. It is important to understand that God never sends you thoughts of fear or limitation. His ideas uplift, expand, and harmonize. Whenever you feel inspired to rise to a higher version of yourself, whenever you sense a pull toward goodness or truth, the divine is moving through you. When you embrace these impressions, your inner world becomes a reflection of the infinite, and your outer world begins to shift accordingly. Divine ideas carry authority, they carry creative intelligence, they carry spiritual certainty. When you accept them, your thoughts become powerful because they are no longer powered by your human strength alone. They are powered by the infinite. As you continue to align your thoughts with divine truth, you discover a profound secret. The more you think God's thoughts, the more your life becomes a testimony to divine order. You begin to experience synchronicities, breakthroughs, unexpected blessings, and inner peace. You start attracting the right people, opportunities, and solutions. Your decisions become guided, your path becomes clearer. You realize that your mind is not merely personal, it is a doorway to the infinite. And when that doorway is open, your thoughts become instruments of divine power, shaping your destiny with precision and grace. Ignoring divine nudges blocks the flow of blessings and clarity because the guidance that comes from within is not merely a suggestion, it is the infinite intelligence directing your path toward greater harmony. Every time a gentle inner prompting arises, it is a thread woven by God to lead you toward healing, protection, opportunities, and spiritual evolution. But when you disregard these subtle signals, you cut yourself off from the very guidance designed to elevate your life. Most people do not intentionally ignore these nudges. They simply dismiss them as random thoughts, imagination, or emotion. They do not realize that divine communication is often soft, quiet, and easily overlooked. The divine rarely forces, it invites. And every ignored invitation delays the blessings waiting for you. There are moments when your intuition whispers, "Don't go there," or "Call this person," or "Wait a little longer," or "Take this chance." When you honor these inner movements, you align yourself with divine timing and divine orchestration. But when you ignore them because they don't match your logic, your fears, or your comfort zone, you lose alignment with a higher plan unfolding for you. Ignoring divine nudges doesn't anger God, but it disconnects you from the clarity He is offering. God's guidance is like a lamp lighting each step. When you fail to follow the light, you walk into unnecessary shadows. Life has a way of repeating lessons when intuition is ignored. Think of the times you felt something wasn't right but proceeded anyway, only to face regret later. You might have felt nudged to slow down, to decline a certain offer, to distance yourself from a toxic environment, or to pursue an opportunity. But when ignored, these nudges often lead to turmoil, confusion, or missed blessings, not because the divine abandoned you, but because your inner senses were guiding you away from those outcomes. The regret you felt afterward was not punishment, it was proof that the divine voice had spoken long before the consequences unfolded. Divine nudges also guide you toward openings, moments of grace, where blessings are positioned perfectly for you. A sudden desire to reach out to someone, a strong urge to attempt something new, a persistent thought that refuses to leave your mind, these are inner signals directing you to your next chapter. But when you silence them through doubt, fear, or overthinking, you close the door on opportunities that could have uplifted your life. Blessings often arrive disguised as intuitive impulses. If they are ignored, they pass quietly. God never forces a blessing. He offers it through thought, desire, inspiration, and subtle inner motion. Ignoring divine nudges can also create inner confusion. When you repeatedly dismiss your intuition, your inner clarity becomes dull. It becomes harder to distinguish between fear and guidance, doubt and discernment. The inner voice of wisdom grows faint not because it disappears, but because your attention has been given to everything except the divine. Noise replaces stillness, worry replaces trust, and mental clutter replaces spiritual sensitivity. The more you ignore the inner voice, the more distant it feels. But the moment you choose to listen again, it returns with warmth, readiness, and peace. One reason people ignore divine nudges is because they expect guidance to be dramatic, loud, and unmistakable. But God rarely speaks in thunder. He speaks in quiet direction, in the soft glow of intuition, in the peaceful certainty that settles into your heart. His nudges come through gentle feelings, persistent thoughts, synchronicities, and sudden clarity that cannot be explained logically. When you learn to value these subtle movements, you begin to recognize that the divine speaks constantly and lovingly, not occasionally or selectively. Another reason people ignore divine nudges is fear, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of change. Fear of stepping outside their comfort zone. But ironically, divine nudges always lead you away from fear, not toward it. The guidance may feel unfamiliar, but it will always carry a sense of peace beneath the uncertainty. When you trust this peace, you disarm fear. When you trust fear instead, you block divine guidance. Fear may feel loud, but it has no truth. Divine nudges may feel soft, but they carry absolute truth. As you begin to honor the subtle voice within, your life opens, paths become clearer, decisions become lighter. You feel guided even when logic fails to explain your direction. You start noticing synchronicities, perfect timing, unexpected support, doors opening with little effort. These are signs that you are no longer ignoring divine communication. You are cooperating with it. In the end, divine nudges are not random. They are the language of God written in the ink of intuition. When you ignore them, you walk through life blindfolded. When you follow them, you walk with divine companionship. The more you listen, the more guidance flows. The more you honor, the more blessings unfold. And when you fully embrace this inner communication, you discover that life becomes not a struggle of trial and error, but a journey of divine alignment, purposeful steps, and spiritual clarity, guiding you toward your highest destiny. Listening to God within transforms your life, destiny, and inner peace because it reconnects you with the deepest truth about yourself. You are not alone, not abandoned, not without direction. You are guided every moment by a presence that knows your path far better than your fears, your logic, or your past experiences ever could. When you learn to listen to this inner guidance, life stops feeling like a series of random events and begins to unfold with a sense of purpose, meaning, and divine orchestration. The inner voice of God is not something you must chase, strain to hear, or earn through perfection. It is already present, speaking in the quiet language of intuition, peace, and inspired thoughts. The transformation begins the moment you decide to trust these impressions. Life becomes dramatically clearer when you recognize the difference between the noise of your mind and the whisper of your soul. The human mind is filled with opinions, fears, memories, and assumptions that often distort your perception. But the inner voice of God speaks with perfect clarity. It may be subtle, but its truth feels unmistakable. It brings a sense of calm even when the message challenges you. It brings reassurance even when the path ahead seems uncertain. It brings a knowing that transcends logic because it originates from divine intelligence, not human reasoning. When you follow this guidance, you begin walking through life with a confidence that nothing external can shake. Listening to God within also transforms your destiny. Many people drift through life with no clear sense of direction, making choices based on temporary emotions or external pressure. But the divine sees the full landscape of your life, the people you are meant to meet, the opportunities aligned with your purpose, the lessons you must learn, and the blessings prepared for you. When you quiet your mind and listen, you begin receiving instructions that lead you exactly where you need to be. Divine guidance is always purposeful. It never leads to confusion or chaos. Even when it guides you through challenges, those challenges become stepping stones toward a greater good. Your destiny is not something you create alone. It is something you co-create with the infinite. The inner voice of God offers direction, but you must take the steps. When you honor the nudges, follow the signs, and trust the intuitive clarity, your life aligns with events and opportunities that feel almost miraculous. You find yourself in the right place at the right time. Doors open without force. You receive support from unexpected sources. Your gifts and talents emerge more fully. This is not coincidence. It is divine alignment. The more you listen, the more aligned your life becomes. Perhaps the most profound transformation that comes from listening to God within is the deep inner peace that begins to bloom. Peace is the natural state of your soul. It is not dependent on circumstances, achievement, or external stability. It arises from alignment with truth. When you follow divine guidance, even the challenges of life feel manageable because you know you are not navigating them alone. You feel held, supported, and watched over. This inner peace does not eliminate difficulty, but it eliminates panic. It does not remove obstacles, but it gives you the wisdom to overcome them. Your emotional world shifts. Fear loses its grip, anxiety loosens, confusion dissolves. You begin to see life not as an adversary but as a teacher. You begin to understand that every experience, pleasant or painful, carries guidance, growth, and divine purpose. Peace becomes your anchor, not because life becomes easy, but because you become centered. You recognize that the divine speaks not only through intuition, but also through timing, synchronicity, unexpected changes, and inner yearning. You begin to trust the flow of life instead of resisting it. Listening to God within also transforms the way you relate to others. You become more compassionate because you sense the sacredness within all people. You become more patient because you trust the timing of events. You become more forgiving because you recognize that holding resentment blocks your inner clarity. You speak more gently, act more wisely, love more freely, and listen more deeply. This inner transformation changes your outer reality. Relationships improve, opportunities grow. Your environment begins to reflect the peace you cultivate within yourself. As you deepen this inner listening, your life becomes less about striving and more about flowing. You stop chasing what is not meant for you and begin attracting what is. You stop forcing outcomes and begin trusting divine timing. You stop fearing the unknown and start welcoming the next step. You walk with a quiet power, a spiritual confidence rooted not in ego, but in connection with the infinite. Your destiny unfolds not by accident, but by divine design, because you are finally listening to the one who created it. In the end, listening to God within is not merely a spiritual practice, it is a way of living. It turns your mind into a sanctuary, your heart into a compass, and your life into a testimony of what becomes possible when you align yourself with divine wisdom. It is the path to clarity, the path to purpose, and the path to peace. It is the way you were always meant to live. In the final analysis, everything you seek, every breakthrough, every transformation, every quiet longing of your heart, is already stirring within the unseen chambers of your mind. You have journeyed through the principles, the keynotes, the revelations that show you how thought, belief, and inner alignment are the true architects of your destiny. And now, as you stand at the edge of this message, you are invited to do more than listen. You are invited to become. Become the one who no longer surrenders to fear. Become the one who no longer negotiates with doubt. Become the one who recognizes that the invisible currents of your subconscious mind are waiting for your direction like a loyal, tireless servant. Every idea you nourish grows. Every belief you hold takes shape. Every mental picture you revisit becomes a blueprint the universe rushes to fulfill. You are not dealing with guesswork, nor with vague spiritual poetry, but with the eternal law that as within, so without. The life you dream of is not distant. It is mirrored in the images you hold in the silence of your inner world. If those images are lifted, life rises. If those images are strengthened, life stabilizes. If those images are cleansed of fear, life unfolds in peace. So as you move forward from this moment, refuse to think small. Refuse to shrink in the presence of challenges that are only shadows created by old beliefs. Refuse to bow before circumstances that are already dissolving as your consciousness expands. Let this be the hour where you decide that the mind God gave you is not to be wasted on worry, nor buried in self-doubt, nor clouded with the illusions of impossibility. Let this be the hour where you assume the feeling of your desired state and walk as though it were already manifested. Your thoughts are seeds of power. Your imagination is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Your faith is the force that transforms concept into reality. When you align these, nothing is denied to you. Nothing is withheld, nothing remains out of reach, for the universe responds not to what you hope for casually, but to what you claim boldly, consistently, and emotionally. And so, I invite you now to step into a higher agreement with yourself, to choose thoughts that heal, to nurture beliefs that liberate, to cultivate a mental atmosphere where abundance is natural, peace is constant, and miracles are simply the logical result of spiritual law. This is not wishful thinking. This is mental mastery. This is the truth taught by sages, prophets, mystics, and the greatest minds of history, that life reshapes itself according to the nature of your consciousness. As you leave this message, carry with you the awareness that the power that formed galaxies and carved mountains is the very same power that flows through your mind. You are not weak, you are not incomplete, you are not destined to repeat the stories of yesterday. You are a creator, quietly, continually, profoundly shaping your world with every sustained thought.